In this presentation, I want to introduce you to two groups of chordates we describe as the invertebrate chordates because the notochord is not replaced by a backbone. These animals don't have a backbone. They don't have vertebrae, but they are going to have the four characteristics of chordates we had previously mentioned. Let's begin by looking, for example, at the cephalochordates, also known as the lancelets. The subphylum Cephalochordata is going to be comprised of animals that kind of look like a fish that didn't quite develop. And you can see what these animals look like in this illustration. I am enlarging the images included in my slide. And so here you can see the adult form. Maybe you can see the little hand pointer that I have. There's a streamlined type of a body at this end. There is a mouth surrounded by cirri, which is going to be like little tentacles that are helping aim and direct food towards the mouth. At this end, we're going to have the post-anal tail. Maybe it's easier to see the characteristics of this animal by looking at an illustration like the one to the left here. Let's review the four shared traits of chordates, which we also described before as synapomorphies. These are characteristics that are shared by all members of phylum Chordata. Let's begin with the notochord, and here you see this flexible but protective rod made up of cells that is going to be providing protection to the dorsal hollow nerve cord, which is located right here. This is going to be the digestive tract of the animal. So number one, we mentioned notochord. Number two, here we have the second characteristic, dorsal hollow nerve cord. Number three, we have mentioned before, pharyngeal pouches, that in the case of the cephalochordates, like the lancelet you see right here, those pouches, the clefts develop into pharyngeal slits. And these pharyngeal slits are going to allow water to pass through. They are going to be important for the animal to collect food and obtain energy that way. And the fourth general characteristic of chordates we can see in the lancelet is going to be the presence of this post-anal tail. These illustrations you see here, like a V bands, that's muscles in fish and animals similar to fish that move in water. You will all often notice that muscles are going to have this V-shaped arrangement. If you ever fillet a fish, you may recall exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So these are the cephalochordates. And what is also noteworthy about these animals is that this is a group of chordates where the notochord remains as is. Just like it was during embryonic development, the notochord will persist in the adult as a flexible but supportive rod structure. Now we have another group of invertebrate chordates. These are chordates who don't have a backbone. And something surprising that happens with these animals is that there is going to be no notochord present in the adult. So here we're looking at an enlarged image of the larval stage of a tunicate or a urochordate. And here we see the notochord, there it is right there, providing protection to the dorsal hollow nerve cord. But if you look at the illustration to the right, this is the adult, you will not see the notochord illustrated here because it isn't there. The notochord disappears. And so these animals have no backbone and they have no notochord as adults. They do have, as adults, some of the other characteristics of chordates, including this pharynx, which is going to have slits, and those slits allow for water to move through, bringing food particles. The pharynx is covered with cilia, and the movement of the cilia guides suspended food particles over here to the esophagus, where those food particles will be consumed, digested, and it will be a source of energy for the animal. The tunicates are often known as the sea squirts because they have this behavior. If you touch them, often you can see them exposed when the tide goes down. And if you touch a tunicate, they're going to be squirting a jet of water, which is kind of like a defense mechanism for the animal as they try to shrink and get smaller. And because of that jet of water they squirt out, these are also known as the sea squirts. And in terms of what they do is they are going to be collecting water, as I mentioned before. They are going to be filtering out the suspended fluid particles, and then excess water will be going out through this excurrent siphon. So notice that they have an incurrent siphon where water with particles goes in, and there's an excurrent siphon where the water that has passed through the pharyngeal slits of the animal will be going out. And so these are relatively simple animals, relatively simple chordates. And for me, it's kind of like mind-boggling to imagine that, yes, this little simple tunicate is in the same phylum as a chordate, like a reptile, like a bird, like a mammal. And by now you should know the explanation as to why this is the case. Keep in mind, keep reviewing the four shared traits of chordates, and then you will see the answer as to why this is also considered a chordate.